Hello and welcome to this video series on static and dynamic data structures. In this video, I would like to focus on looking at the use case for parallel arrays and then also looking at multidimensional arrays. We did do an example of how to process or loop through an array in the previous video, but I'll specifically mention that in this video as well, just so that we're understanding how to loop through an array and output items. So let's jump ahead in our slideshow. So parallel arrays. Whenever you have something that's parallel, they're next to one another. They almost mimic the same position next to one another. And so in this case here on this slide, we have, let's see if I can bring my highlighter out. Okay. So we have two arrays. One is an array that gives the number for the valid items, and so we have 106, 108, 307. But then there's like the ID number for the item. But then here's a totally separate array called valid prices. And so what it's doing is it's doing something we call an indirect relationship. It's correlating the item in this array by its index with this one. So item 106 will get a price of 59 cents. Item 108 will get a price of 99. Item 307 will get a price of 450. But these are totally two different arrays that we have. And so if we had to code this out, let's actually take a look at our program that we've already touched on and do an example of parallel arrays. So here's the example from the previous video where we had the candy bars. And this is a string array that holds 4 different candy bars. What I can do here is create another array, and I'll make this double, and I'll say candy bar prices. And I'm going to correlate the price of the candy bar with the name of the candy bar, and it'll be an indirect relationship based on the index value. So here, the index of the value. So we'll say for Snickers, let's say it's $1. Twix is going to be $1.25. Let's say Almond Joy is 95 cents. 100 grand, that's $2. So again, these arrays are totally separate, but they're paralleling each other based on the index, the position within an array. And again, so Snickers is $1, Twix is $1.25, Almond Joy is 95 cents, and then 100 grand is $2. So what I can do here is say, if I know the index of Snickers, I can output the price as well. So I'll say item is an array, and then I'll say system out.print the item is, do a string concatenation, and I'll say candy bars. I just put X here. And because I'm going to parallel this, because I know what candy bar it is, I also know the price based on the index. And so I'll say candy bar prices X. I just do a little bit of string concatenation here. And end my statement with a semicolon. All right, there's a few other things I want to do here. So let's say that we want to make sure that it's an item that we actually can find. So let's say Twix. And then here, let me just say one thing here. As we're looping through and we do find the item, let's say equal to true, that doesn't mean that the array stops looping through, right? So if we're at Twix, it's still going to check for Almond Joy. It's still going to check for 100 grand. But what I want to do is that once we do find an item, I want to store that item, the index of that item, into a new variable. Stay with me. This may be a little tricky here, but I'm going to say int item. And then when I'm going to say item, it's going to be equal to X. And then here, I want to set X equal to candy bars dot length. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I am taking the index of whatever value that it actually found. If it found Twix, it'll go into the block. It'll say is found is true. It'll flip the flag variable. So it'll be from now is found, it won't be false anymore, it'll be true. And then we're going to take this new variable item, that's an integer, we're going to store the index of that item within our array. And then here we're taking the X and we're setting it equal to the length of our condition. What's going to happen here is that this will stop the looping structure from looking at the next item in our array, and it'll quickly get us to the next structure. So it'll get us out of the block, and then it'll run this if statement. So why do we want to do that? It's because we don't want to evaluate Almond Joy or 100 grand or any other item within the array no more. Because once we find it, let's get them out the array, right? So let's run this. Let's see, we got a few errors. Missing a concatenation symbol. And let's see, I think that's it. So if we run this now, all right. Oh, okay, my bad. Here is item. We've got to plug that in here. So X, we can't use X here because if we say X is equal to candy bars dot length, here we're saying X is equal to 4, and then X is going to increment again, and that'll be 5, and it'll say while 5 is less than candy bars dot length. And that'll break this condition, go here, but then if we were to use X, it'll say candy bars 5, and there's no such thing as candy bars 5, because we got 0, 1, 2, 3, and we can't do that. So in this case here, we'll put item. And that's the exact reason why we did this item equals X, to get that exact item in our array that we're looking for. So now if we run this, we should get item is an array, and this is the item that, let's see, item, int, item. Oh, let's do this, item equals 0. There we go, and now run it. Sometimes you have to, certain editors, you have to actually initialize the item, or actually initialize the variable, because let's say, for instance, none of these conditions are true, then item would never hold a value. So we have to give it an initial value in order to run the program. And I'll just do a print line here so that we can actually get the formatting correct. So let's run this again. And there we go. Item is an array. The item is Twix for the price of $1.25. Again, these are not related arrays. They're two separate arrays, but we're paralleling it on the index. The next thing I want to talk about is multi-dimensional arrays. Again, what you may want to do is just pause this video. I would say study this code, see if you can change the value to output Almond Joy, right? So play around with this, study it. But now let's look at multi-dimensional arrays and how we can use some of the use cases for a multi-dimensional array. Actually, let's go ahead and pause here, and then in the next video we'll pick up on multi-dimensional arrays and we'll go from there.